Welcome to another episode of Start the Week with Wisdom. I'm your host, Bridget Burns with the University Innovation Alliance.
And I'm Doug Lederman, editor and co-founder of Inside Higher Ed.
Doug and I typically team up each week to have a conversation with a leader in the field, but this is going to be an episode where we're catching up. It's been a wild new year, so that will be today's special episode. Normally, Start the Week with Wisdom is really about surfacing hope and optimism and a little bit of professional development by distilling what people have learned throughout their careers. And we still are going to be able to provide that today, but it's going to be more about what it's like for Doug and I to navigate in real time January 2024. So, fingers crossed.
And Weekly Wisdom this week, as every week, is brought to you by Mainstay, formerly AdmitHub. It's a student engagement and retention platform that proves that it works through peer-reviewed research. Mainstay's done a lot of work with Georgia State, and it's got a couple of great case studies about how it helped Georgia State reduce summer melt, and also retain 1,200 students that it probably wouldn't have otherwise. So check out the research and learn more about Mainstay at mainstay.com.
So it's now towards the end of January. Last time we talked was actually right before the new year. And since that time, the Harvard president resigned. There's been a new round of student loan forgiveness. There's been more talk about public opinion and public sentiment. What else is tracking on your radar? IHE tracks everything.
It's also been a heavy sort of meeting time, and I've been with a lot of college presidents over the last few weeks, Council of Independent Colleges, the small private institutions, American Association of Colleges and Universities, which sort of focuses on learning and sort of student success, and lots of conversations with college presidents, a lot of angst. And not surprisingly, sort of heaviest among presidents from underrepresented backgrounds, a lot of concern about women. I think the Harvard president, as unrepresentative as that might be of lots of things, I think it has really freaked a lot of people out, and especially when you had Congress sort of essentially calling for those resignations of the presidents of those institutions, and investigating how the institutions have handled things. I think there's just a lot of worry about not just about the public opinion, but about the activity of politicians, especially heading into an election year that we think is pretty clearly going to be tumultuous, to say the least. So I just feel a lot of angst out there, and I get it. And a lot of people wanting to know, what do we do about it? So, and I know you've got your own set of institutions to focus on, but I imagine so you're hearing some of that as well.
Well, not that it's a competition, but I did put 36 college presidents and chancellors and provosts on a plane Tuesday morning after having them here for our board retreat. So I feel like I don't know how many you were spending time with, but it's always that I could compete with you over the weekend. I do think that there is that sense of unsettledness and concern about some of these broader trends. But for me, just because of where I'm coming from, which is straight out of our retreat, where my board was, we set them up to set a new vision, chart a new path, and a new goal. And because their ambition was far greater than I expected, and their willingness to tackle these really complex issues was far more, ambitious, aggressive, willing, and candid. I don't have I can't unveil fully the because now that we have those paths, we have to also build out the metrics, that update our data sharing agreement, set the work plans, because we don't we're like really actually about doing the work, not just like making big proclamations. So I will just say that I'm actually really optimistic, and more so than I have been in a long time, which is despite the fact that, yes, there is this palpable sense of concern, and it's justified. And I think that there needs to be a response, and it cannot be what we have done before, which is just wait it out. And if it's not an attack on your institution, then you just keep your head down. In this case, you have groups like my group of institution leaders actually deciding to take some of these things head on. And also in what I think is often needed is sometimes admitting a fair point when there is one.
Yeah.
Because there has been bad behavior by bad actors who we should call out, and we shouldn't act like we're a monolith. There's nuance between these institutions. And I think the public has reason to be skeptical about higher ed when we blanket defend bad behavior when there has been bad behavior done, especially by the for-profit sector and some of the elites. Like, I just think that acting like we're all the same is not, doesn't build a lot of trust.
I think that's right. I mean, I one of the talks I gave in the last week or so, I basically said that higher education is broadly assumed to be as unaffordable as the most expensive institution and as inaccessible as the university with the lowest rates of Pell eligible students and minority students, and as poorly performing as the college with the lowest graduation rate or the highest student debt level. And so, in an environment like that, it's, we would definitely benefit from greater differentiation, but we would also benefit. And I think when you talk about sort of why, what's different about your set of institutions is that they are working collectively. I mean, I think there's most college presidents, and again, a lot of the presidents I've talked to in the last couple of weeks have been at places that are small privates and work, are kind of on their own in certain ways. And one of the challenges that I put to the AAC and U folks is I think higher ed has sort of to some extent made this bed for itself by failing to affirmatively say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is how we're willing to be measured in our ability, our success in carrying out that mission. And frankly, that's what you and your institutions to some extent do. It's not on the entirety of what the institutions do. There's not a big research component or whatever, but like you're focused on that core mission of educating students, and and so it's not surprising to me that a group of you working together have been able to do that, and that probably gives them and you confidence that it can be attacked and accomplished, as opposed to some president sitting out there at some solo institution feeling, how do I combat this? So it's anyway, that's just one thought about sort of why you can probably feel more confident than I think a lot of the people I'm talking to.
I would say that I feel like any president can rise to the occasion. This work was always designed to fill the hole at like being the thing I wished existed when I first got involved into higher ed. I didn't understand why there was such a clear lack of cooperation, collaboration. There was just too much anyway. But I actually believe that anyone can do this. I think that there are a variety of collaboratives out there. I think that often there's too much focus on, and I don't say that because this is a bad thing, shared services is the approach and the outcome for collaborative work. That's meaningful, saves money, it's smart for small colleges, but it's a lot of work. And so the focus for me when you do collaborative stuff is shared problems or big challenges that you can only accomplish together. That's it. I don't want to talk about anything else. I don't talk about anything they compete on. Online education was off the table for a really long time because you could see billboards with each other's names in other cities, but there's now space where they have shared problems, or there's something they can only accomplish together. And I just think that can be true for any consortium. Like we want more people doing this work. And I know that not everyone can be in the Alliance. So I definitely want to affirm that. And actually, on that note, I will say that today I can break some news. I can break some, and it's good news, which is that we have created an event. It happened last in 2018 that is unlike any other event in higher ed. It is the best, I believe. I am biased, but it is a dynamic experience where any institution can send a team. That's our preference, is you send a team of professionals to work on student success and innovation it's the UIA Summit, and it's a dynamic experience that is much more workshop, much more hands-on, like all the best ideas, super inspiring, but you actually get time to do work while you're there as a team. You make commitments there as a group. You find other partners who are passionate about similar kind of work. And in fact, last time we were able to raise money to support new collaboratives that were birthed at the event. And there were multiple that formed and did actually cool work together. So that's the UIA Summit. And it is going to be October 23rd through the 25th in Tempe, Arizona. And it's going to be, it's going to sell out. It sold out last time. We just, like hotel contracts, all of that, but just save the date and I will follow up on registration. But the key here is this is for people who want to actually take action, who really want to do this work and find like-minded peers. It's unlike anything that exists. A lot of conferences out there are great, but we think that sometimes you can be a little exhausted hearing ideas. Instead of about coverage, it's about true transfer of ideas. So the summit is going to be one thing that will be really valuable. And but in general, we hope that other people will consider coming, or if you're interested in joining the Alliance, I would say you definitely don't want to be there. So that's my positive news, is that my board is taking these things on, is more ambitious than I ever imagined. And we're still creating things that are valuable for anyone, regardless of what institution you're at. We don't want this to be about, we didn't want to recreate the elites, right? Like we're trying to make it so that higher ed's different.
Is there anything you can say about what the challenge, how you laid out the challenges, or how you're thinking about the challenges that need to be addressed? That's either expanded from what you've been focusing on, or just at least directionally.
So the last time I think we talked about what I was thinking about, the need for a talent and opportunity strategy in the future of AI. And that's definite. Like the response is yes, and each state and nationally. But I wanted to put on the table, from my conversations with them, social mobility and this idea of resilient graduates. And both of those are a yes, but they were like, yes, and wanting to go further into ROI, further into measuring and accountability. And I can share, actually. So part of the reason why I'm so hopeful is that this is the profile of my institutions, right? So a group of now 18 institutions, large numbers of Pell students, and a slightly higher proportion of students of color. So when we do our work, when we do innovation work and scale work, we're really we're serving populations and getting information about how to serve them better in large numbers, and compared to other sectors, So part of what I shared was this slide, which is essentially that if you look at how race and ethnicity progression over time, when it comes to bachelor's degree rates, you can see that every population is making progress, but the most persistent thing we are doing is maintaining firmly those gaps. The gaps are like the one constant. And so clearly we need to have a really concerted effort to try and address those gaps, because progress by every group, but maintaining those gaps is not getting us where we need to be. Also, that when you look at income quartile, like there was a chart back, the New York Times, that I always usually use, that showed that back in the 1970s, if you were born in poverty, you got a 6 out of 100 chance of getting a bachelor's degree. And after all of our work on progress and innovation, that number had basically plateaued at like 9. But now you can see, we're around 12%. That's some okay, but broadly, if you take a step back, it shows A, progress is possible, but again, B, a firm commitment to these gaps. These numbers, like they're
you're 4 times likelier to get a degree if you're from a wealthy family than from a not wealthy family. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and that's a problem.
So, but this is going to take different work. It's not going to
Right.
take need blind work, right? And so this is not new. Both these pieces are kind of a baseline, I think. But the part that really was, I think, newer is this around specifically around gender. So
Mhm.
if you see, we make the flip in around 2018 in the gaps between participation completion between men and women. But the point that I want to make is that if you look at the gap right now between men and women, it is almost mirror to what we had in the 1960s and 70s when people were calling for a revolution. Where is the revolution now? Where are
Mhm.
people calling for the revolution when we see those kinds of gaps, which you do not want to live in a society of uneducated men? We need to actively be engaged in addressing the reasons why men and boys are not wanting to continue in education. This is a serious threat to the long-term prosperity for our society. So this is something that needs to be like, we need to be not just looking at our data from a neutral standpoint. We need to be going into a granular level, and gender has to be on the table in terms of how we talk about education, how we support students. We clearly need to address this. And then I also think age group. So you look at this, you see each group is slowly making progress. We're getting more attainment, except now 25 to 34-year-olds, it's the first group, and it's getting worse. Participation rates and attainment are less than older adults. So this is where we're starting to see the thing that people are talking about, how in K-12 schools you have phone addicted kids, you have serious issues that around disruption in the classroom. We really have left our teachers in a difficult position, and we're the ones who educate the teachers. We're actually responsible for, producing the talent pool. So we have to prepare them better. We have to think differently about how we support we support teachers, but we got to deal with this about this idea that going to college isn't worth it. I think the last is this idea of urban and rural. It really demands a completely different approach. And that is not something that universities are going to come up with alone. I think that extension should be they should be the leaders on telling us how to do this work. But I think there has to be a cross-sector solution. This is something we've been talking about with APLU, like work for Main Street, social services, government, public policy, higher ed, community colleges, and K-12. There needs to be a renewed partnership and almost a design thinking exercise to reimagine how we show up and serve rural communities, so that people, that there are places, lots of places, especially where I came from, where going to college was the thought that we were losing yet another talented person and they were not going to come back. That is not going to help solve this issue. So I think, in general, there is meaningful work that needs leadership. And I am just really excited that my board of presidents, chancellors, and the provosts who join them are interested in stepping forward and stepping up to the task of solving these big problems that can never be solved by one institution. And I think that we're not alone. I think that there are others.
Definitely. And it's really interesting that I'm really glad you highlighted the gender stuff and the urban rural, because connecting the two strands of this conversation, if we think about, and there's so many reasons why why politicians to a meaningful extent, and the public to maybe to also a meaningful extent, although maybe slightly less, are questioning, the direction of higher education. The extent to which you can connect some of it doesn't explain all of it by any means, but to some extent, why, and I'm going to exaggerate here for sort of effect, but one of the reasons why the Republicans, the right, however you want to define it, is questioning higher ed, is because of a sense that I've heard this said by people who spend a lot more time on the Hill than I do, but that there are Republicans in Congress and elsewhere who say, my constituents, rural white men, you don't care about. Your institutions are not I don't mean I mean higher ed. And if you think about the sort of prototypical, and I'm not going to try and sit here and say I fully understand who the Trump voter is right now, but if you look at this sort of stereotypical Trump voter, it's the white men who feel like they've been left out, white rural men who feel like they've been left out, and who really view higher ed as the enemy. And again, I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying, but like those data reflect a problem that this ecosystem of institutions have to take seriously. And it's not instead of, but it certainly can't be ignored.
No, I think there are a lot of people who, no, I don't know if I'm getting feedback, who have a very good reason to believe that they are not being listened to, and it's not just those. And someone who's related to a lot of folks who think differently about the world than I do. I think leaning in with curiosity to try and understand that perspective rather than judge it is super important. And but I think more than anything, the greatest threat to our democracy is the belief that the American dream is an illusion. And there are large pockets of society who have very justified reasons to believe that. And I think that we all need to team up and focus on making it a reality for every person, regardless of their background, their income, their location, their gender. And that's not going to happen by accident. And it's not going to happen by one institution. It's going to take a concerted, intentional effort for universities to step into their true purpose, which is talent activation, service and talent activation, and scholarship and discovery that moves the world forward. And doing it in a way that is actively in conversation with those groups who have felt, for very good reason, left out. And because that's the American dream should be a reality. And we've been patting ourselves on the back for far too long, even though there are large populations who have been, as based on that data, who we're more committed to our gaps than we are to progress. So I would say that the hopeful message for me is that the leadership that we're hoping exists, it does exist, and it is here. And again, that it is collective. And I think that we are not alone in this commitment. I'm hearing more and more everywhere I go, instead of, this plugging my ears, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. People I think university presidents, chancellors, just in general, that our sector is waking up to the feedback that may have been given for quite some time, but we're listening. And I think that it is being recognized that the approach of nuh-uh or not my graduates is insufficient. And I am excited that means we are going to have to find a different response, which I believe means change what you're doing, shift, and actually listen to the audience you need to serve. So that's my hope. But I'm also very firmly committed to being optimistic on a Monday.
Yeah, fair point.
Well, thanks for this conversation. It's always super helpful for us to ground, our interviews and our conversations with leaders, with also making sure that we're, in conversation with our audience. So I always appreciate when folks come up to me or reach out about the show and ideas for who to put on, and also the kinds of conversations they like, which they seem to like you and I talking to each other, which is, this is very helpful.
No accounting for taste.
No counting for taste. So I guess the last thing before we wrap is I would just say that, again, announcing the good news about the UIA National Summit. Save the date on your calendar, October 23rd through the 25th. And just keep in mind, we are very aware how close that is to the election, and it's on purpose, because the theme of this work has to be about resilience. And the theme of this event is going to be about setting your campus up to navigate with resilience. No matter, the outcome of the election, we have to stay laser focused on these outcomes and improving them for every student. And you're not going to do it alone. You're going to do it best when you're in community with others who are committed. And so we're going to create that space for you and give you the hope and optimism you need to navigate that November month, which, I'm manifesting is a month of just nothing but ease, calm, everything will be fine. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you have a great week, and we will see you soon.